Hey guys, so yes, Sukuna can clear floors 1 through 5, even the off-color floors, and relatively easily as well. So I wanted to make this video as more of a showcase to why Sukuna is so strong. We're going to use this team for floors 1, 2, and 5. This is a 0 RNG setup that uses this recollection to give Gojo ult on turn 4 when Gakuganji comes in. You can use standard setups, you can just use LMS or an excellent shape on Gojo and then bring some kind of CE region recollection on Gakuganji. So you don't need this recollection by any means. But if you have it, this is a nice setup to run because it eliminates any targeting RNG for the most part. I will be making guide videos showing you guys all of these floors without Sukuna, of course, and that's coming in the next 1 or 2 days. But because today is Sukuna's release day, I just wanted to make this video showing you guys just how strong he is. He really is the best DPS in the game, and it's not even close. And you'll see that it's not like he just does so much raw damage with his abilities, although he does. That's not the main point. The main reason he performs so well off color is because his bleed ignores type advantage, or type disadvantage in this case. Now we're going to taunt on Toge. Pride is also very good on him because so his bleed, how it works is when you apply it, depending on how much curse tech you have on the turn you apply it, is how much damage the bleed will do for the next however many turns that it's going to do damage for. I'm going to ult here. Also, when you're using Sukuna off color, you don't really need to worry about double stacking Pride when you ult or forcing that to happen. It's nice if you can get your rotation to line up that way, but when you're using DE Gojo with him and you're ulting on turn 4, you want to at least get Sukuna's ult off by the second turn of the debuff window, so that you can get at least one skill 3 off on the last turn of the debuff window. Right? So we're going to ult this turn, actually, on Sukuna, so that on the 4th turn of the debuff window, again, we can use a double Pride stack skill 3. And you guys will see that it does a lot of damage, even through type disadvantage. So we have a nice 600k bleed going on him. Gojo's doing a lot of damage. So even if your Gojo black flashed a bunch and killed the boss this turn, and then the boss revived, it's not a big deal. You can just continue playing and then you'll clear. And for this fight specifically, I can't even show you guys the skill 3 because Gojo does too much damage. But you'll see in the future floors why it's so good. Okay, for this next fight, our rotation won't line up perfectly, but it will still work pretty well. I think we're going to be ulting with Gojo on turn 5 though. So we definitely could have changed the recollection setup to make this smoother, but I just didn't bother because you don't really need to. And even with Gojo ulting on turn 5, it's not like you're lacking any damage. And for all of these floors, by the way, I don't even think you need Sukuna at dupe 1. Although of course, if you have him at A0 and you have a shard, you should definitely use it. But even if you don't have a shard and you have him at A0, he'll still perform fine for all these floors, even if it might take you a few more turns. Okay. Same thing. The boss on the left here has physical damage taken resist, but I mean, of course, Sukuna is a curse tech dealer for the most part, so that doesn't really affect us. We're going to use this. Again, I will make clears for all of these floors. not using Sukuna, and even ones that don't use the Gojo. But yeah, that's coming the next few days. Not anytime soon, as in not tonight. Now Toge will die here. Of course, this means we didn't need that, yeah, good job recollection, the Miguel recollection on Gakuganji, because we already have our ults. But that doesn't really matter. This is still fine. Okay, now I'm gonna ult. I'm gonna ult on Sukuna as well. Just because I want to show you guys how much damage the skill 3s do, even off color. I could have waited to ult next turn, that would have been fine too. With the double pride stacks, that would have made the bleeds do more damage and the ult do more damage. You see they're stacking up. Now skill 3. $2.6 million damage off color. And all those bleeds stacked. Finish off the boss, right? And that was a lot of damage. Another skill 3 on this boss here. $1.6 million off color, and then it dies to the bleed. Broken unit just does way too much damage against all elements, so yeah, it was not understated. When people were saying he was extremely broken and yeah, a must pull, it definitely was not an exaggeration. Now floor 3, because there's a bunch of annoying mechanics for this one, so let me explain that real quick. This guy doesn't really do anything, he just does the classic like AoE, some healing, that kind of stuff. This dude is annoying. He gives you damage dealt decrease to the target at the first and second positions, and then it applies weakening transmission to all your team members. This means that whenever you try to buff, you're going to transmit all of your debuffs onto the rest of your team. So if you have a buffer on turns 1 or on positions 1 or 2, and they use a buff skill, then all your teammates will get this huge damage dealt decrease for that turn, and they won't do any damage. So the strategy around this floor revolves around using something like this. I have SSR Momo in my backup slot, and she's going to come into slot 3 when Toge dies. What that means is that she's going to be able to buff without worrying about anything, and not transmit any debuffs to the rest of her team as long as she doesn't have any debuffs on herself. Yaga shouldn't be buffing on actual burst turns, we'll be buffing for the turns before the burst turns so that we have a bunch of buffs stacked, and then we'll be able to do our damage. And you'll see what I mean here. Also for this slot you can use SSR Momo or SR Nanami. If you don't have her, you can definitely use SR Nanami, and it'll be fine as well. This is kind of like floor 59, it's the same boss from that. So the same trick you can just use, where you buff up to the burst turn, and then you don't buff on certain characters during the burst turn, so that you don't have that massive damage dealt decrease debuff on your teammates. Okay, so we're going to just hit this one, use this. Now we're going to skill 2 on Toge. Okay, we got unlucky with him getting targeted over and over again, but we got lucky that he didn't die there. Now we're going to taunt, make sure he dies. Now we're going to ult. If you don't have this recollection on Momo, just bring any kind of CE boosting one. Okay, now I'm not going to buff on Yaga because I don't want to give the rest of my team debuffs. I am going to buff on Momo because she's in the 3rd slot and she's not going to be transmitting any debuffs because she doesn't have any. Then I'm going to ult. We're ulting the one on the right because the one on the left is not debuffable anyways. Do one more buff on this turn. Now we're not going to buff on this turn because we want to do maximum damage with our skill 3. The double pride stacked skill 3. We're going to continue not buffing. Another 1.2 million, and then the bleed finishes them off. So much damage, right? Moving on to floor 4. So 4 has this gimmick where if you don't break the boss, it pretty much takes 0 damage. So we're going to be playing around that. This is the setup we're going to use. Again, if you don't have this recollection, just bring any kind of CE regen recollection, or just a team damage boosting one, and you can manage your CE by just not buffing on the first turn. And then on Gojo, you can bring an excellent shape if you want, but LMS is very good. It doesn't really matter in this situation which one you bring, because we're not going to be ulting twice on Gojo anyways. So we're immediately going to start buffing on turn 1. We're getting ult gauge. Our rotation is going to be a little bit different. We're going to ult on turn 5 on Gojo, even though we lose a bit of the debuff when we do that, because we want to make sure that we can get maximum bleeds on the boss. Because this boss only takes damage when it's broken, so you're going to see why I have to change my rotation a little bit. The boss will now do some kind of an evade, and that evade will make it so that Toge is not going to die this turn, which is good. So we have our Gojo's ult, but we're not going to use it. We're just going to debuff one more turn. Now we're going to ult. We're ulting on all three of them. So this is to take full advantage of Maito's break and then the break duration, right? Because the boss is broken this turn and then is broken for 2 more turns. So we want to get our Sukuna's ult off on this turn and then get at least 1 skill 3 off before the break fully wears off. Now we'll get a double pride stacked. I don't need to use this yet. A double pride stacked skill 3 off. You can see the bleeds are stacking up. Another skill 3. And it finishes off the boss because of how many bleeds we stacked on it. So the boss's current damage cut doesn't apply to the bleeds. It's just the damage cut it had when the bleeds were applied. Which is again what makes him so strong, right? And then for LF5, we're gonna go back to this team. This one's weak to blue, so it's very simple. If you guys remember floor 40, this is basically the same fight. And that floor was so miserable for all the early players. So getting revenge like this so easily feels very good. Oh, I should have taunted on Togi there actually. It shouldn't really matter, but that was the optimal way to play this so that he dies on this turn. Right now he has a chance to not die if the bugs don't attack. Oh good, perfect. So again, activate Togi's taunt on turn 2 instead of turn 3. That's the better rotation. Now we're going to ult. We're gonna ult on... No, we're not gonna ult on Sukuna yet. That's next turn. Again, you can bring any debuffer in this slot. So Yuta, Gato, and pretty much anybody works. Although of course an AoE one is usually better, and Kakuganji is the best option for the most part. It's not like you can't clear it using anybody else. Even buffers, if you don't have any debuffers and you only have SSR Momo, that's fine. You can find a way to make this work with Sukuna. And of course, if it's weak to blue, it just gets destroyed like this. Yeah. So again, this was more of a showcase than an actual guide, and I will make videos using, or in the typical guide format, with a bunch of teams that use the Gojo, and of course, even ones that just use the main Megumi. So that'll be coming in the next 1 or 2 days, but for now, this is just one I wanted to get out because it shows you guys just how strong he is, right? Okay, I hope this is helpful and hope it was enjoyable to watch. Bye guys.